Days after he was sworn in as Nigeria's 23rd Indigenous Inspector General of Police, IGP Olatunji Diso, last week inaugurated an 8-man committee to oversee the implementation of state police. The IGP's prompt action had stemmed from the directives to him by President Bola Tinubu during his swearing-in. President Tinubu had asked the new IGP to swing into action and make state police a reality as part of measures to combat insecurity, which has been manifesting in different variants in parts of the country. Last week, IGP Diso inaugurated an 8-member committee on the issue, charging it to propose an operational framework for the establishment and coordination of state police structures. The IGP said the recommendations should cover recruitment, training standards, and resource allocation. The 8-man committee, which is headed by Professor Olu Ogunshakin, has 1 month to complete this assignment.
Among other responsibilities, the committee is expected to review existing police models within and outside Nigeria, assess community security needs and emerging risks amongst the country, propose an operational framework for the establishment and coordination of state police structures, address issues relating to recruitment, training standards, and resource allocation, develop robust accountability and oversight mechanisms to ensure professionalism and public trust.
Professor Olu Ogunshakin is the Director General of the National Institute of Police Studies, and the members are DCP Okebichi Agora, DCP Suleiman Gilman, ACP Ikechukwu Okafo, CP Emmanuel Ojuku, who is the Provost of the Police Public Relations School. Now, the issue of state police has been with us for a long time, and each time the nation's security challenges become a talking point in national discourse, the desirability or otherwise of states having their own police architecture has always been hotly debated. Now, the debate is on, but the only difference now is that attention seems to be focused on how and what forms to have state police and no longer whether we should have it. Now, conscious of this change in stance, we shall be interrogating how to realize this idea. For example, can we have state police if we don't tinker with the current structure as provided by the Constitution? Section 214 of the 1999 Constitution as amended declares that there shall be a police force for Nigeria known as the Nigerian Police Force. This section prohibits any other police organization by whatever name called and vests the power to make laws for its organization and administration in the National Assembly. So, any attempt therefore to have any other police organization must necessarily recognize the prime position of the National Assembly. It is in this light that we see the IGP's committee. We will be looking at all of this on Jigsaw today as we are joined by one of the leading experts on the concept of policing in Nigeria, Professor Kemi Rotimi. Professor Rotimi teaches history at the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, and he is the author of The Police in a Federal State, The Nigerian Experience. He has spoken extensively and delivered seminar lectures extensively on state policing. We'll be joining him shortly.
A very warm welcome to the program. My name is Benga Aruleba. We're starting our discussions now. Professor Kemi Rotimi joins us as our guest today. Professor Rotimi teaches history at the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. He's the author of the book, The Police in the Federal State, The Nigerian Experience. And of course, he's one of the leading authorities when it comes to the issue of policing in Nigeria. Prof, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
It's no longer a question of whether state police is desirable or not. It's a question of how do we bring it about. And for the first time in a long while, we have the number one citizen of the country seemingly leading the charge to ensure that state police becomes a reality. Because according to him, this is one solution to the huge insecurity that we're facing across the nation. The president is right on this scope.
Whether the president is right?
Yes, that's the question.
The president is, of course, right. And Nigerians need to be told that the president is not acting without precedent. As governor of Lagos State, he had started what was the Neighborhood Watch, call it Neighborhood Watch scheme, which has now been upgraded to the Lagos Neighborhood Security Corps. If you like, call it state police. So is acting from deep knowledge of having tried to grapple with this problem from when he was governor. So it's on terra firma.
And it will seem as if we have a president too that has also been forward-looking all his life in public service. While he was governor too, we know that the police in Lagos State also, I mean, there was a security endowment fund or something like that that he also set up under the chairmanship of Fola Athawari. I can remember that clearly now. So it will seem as if we have a president who has also been thinking through on all the possible challenges to state police if you have one. The number one issue being that of funding.
Yes, I mean, you are still stating the obvious, but many may not know. But the historical background is useful. By the way, Fola Athawari was executive secretary of the Lagos LSSTF, Lagos State Security Trust Fund. He was the first executive secretary, and he did a good job on that desk. And succeeding governors have carried on where Governor Tinubu, as he was then, left off.
But if state police is to become a reality, Prof, the present initiative by the Inspector General of Police setting up a committee to oversee that, is that the way to go? Can we necessarily have state police, if we don't tinker with the Constitution? And shouldn't that be the starting point? Shouldn't we have the National Assembly key in on this before you can then begin to set up committees on the modalities and all of that?
Okay, I'll put it this way. Mr. President, before the change of baton at Force Headquarters, had spoken with the National Assembly members, with governors on this issue, and then there was change of baton at FHQ, and then there was the speculation when Mr. Dr. Egbetokun left office as IGP, that his reluctance to push the state police team might have been part of his problem. One of the reasons for his removal. That's in the realm of speculation. No official information is available as to why Mr. President removed him or he had to retire. But by talking to National Assembly members, literally pleading with them, that is, Mr. President pleading with them about the need for an amendment to that section of the Constitution that will deregulate policing, because this state policing is all about deregulation of the ownership and control of police in Nigeria. That is, so that beyond just one force with that label, there can be owning and control of police at other levels. So you can see the president carrying along everybody who should be involved. But what you're asking specifically about the involvement of the leadership of the police force, well, what has happened now is that finally you have the leadership of the police buying in to what the political leadership desires. And as I've always said, if policing is to be liberalized, whether the leadership of the MPF is amused by it or against it, it cannot stop it. It's a political decision. Creation of police, even from pre-colonial times, is a political decision. So it's not for one force to say we don't want another force. No, 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 no. So, Mr. President, what he has done now, if you like, is trying to carry along every key group that should weigh in on this matter. The National Assembly members, very crucial, because at the amendment of the Constitution, we have to start from them. There will be endorsement, approval by the state legislatures, but once the move is initiated at the National Assembly level, then it becomes easier. And Nigerians may not have noticed it. This whole thing about everybody now falling into the APC net, it's also useful for a matter like this, because with 31 governors now in the APC, if this move is seriously pursued before the next election and the concurrence is secured, then we are in on it. So the moves made so far, especially since the beginning of this year, but in very recent times by Mr. President, all the moves are welcome, including the setting up of the committee by the IGP. The remit of the committee, you can query some of them. It is not the MPF that will bath state police. And let us be very clear about it so that we don't quibble unnecessarily. State police has already come. In all of the southwestern states, you already have state police. Other states in Nigeria also have outfits sanctioned by the various governments doing the same thing. So all that is now left constitutional imprimatur. The Amotekun, the LNSC in Lagos, these are already state police. They have training schools, they have officers, and I suspect they have ranks. And if I may just fast forward, because we've lost time, when the constitutional amendment has been done and states now are at liberty to start their state police, the governors, I'll plead with them. Everybody is doing Amotekun now, who has been recruited to serve as Amotekun. You first put all of them in the state police. You can be sifting later, but in the immediate for takeoff, you already have the nucleus.
The takeoff point, yeah.
Yes. So everybody is doing using Amotekun, put them there. Knock knee, hunchback, I know that. But I know there are no knockings back there. But whatever inadequacies there may be, put them there. I will quickly add that for the force headquarters, I think the committee set up by the IG should actually begin to think proactively, futuristically about police-police relations. That is, how will the leadership of the MPF, both at the national and at the state level, relate with the leadership and membership of the state police in the individual states? Because let us make no mistakes about it. No governor will set up state police that is funding and we allow that between his police and that of the MPF in his state, there should be subordinate relationship. The state police in Osun cannot be treated as an inferior force to the MPF command in Osun.
That is actually the fear. That's actually the fear of some people already now, that this committee being set up by the IGP is like a police force that is assuming a position of authority and is in the process of giving birth to a junior police formation or police organization.
Let those who have the fear. Over the state police, there are 1,001 fears. All of them can be addressed. But even this one, people must bear in mind that if indeed it is true that the immediate past IG, part of his challenge is the negative disposition to the coming on board of state police, you don't expect the new IG who has come not to do something or to be seen by his employer as being quote unquote loyal and interested. And to be fair, there is no way the coming on board of state police will threaten the job of anybody is wearing uniform now as a Nigerian police officer? No. As a matter of fact, the leadership of the MPF can actually capitalize on the creation of state police to find jobs for their retired personnel. In other words, with good relationship between the force headquarters and state governors, you recommend some of your former members or officers to help in straightening out or giving proper footing to personnel of the state police. Because they will need training. You already have these personnel from the MPF retired, some of whom are in the training schools. They can go to work as contract officers for these state police organizations. So the relationship should be cooperative. But if care is not taken, it can be conflictual. Under no circumstance will any governor allow that the CP in his state will want to be talking down on the head of his state police. No, that will not work.
Okay.
But
for
if
this,
they relate,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah. For this anticipated relationship not to become adversarial, we really need to learn from history. So let's learn from your experience, therefore, somebody who has extensively done, a lot of work on the issue of policing in Nigeria. What were the mistakes of the past? Because state police is not novel, as it were. We had it right from the colonial regime up onto the end of the First Republic. We had state police. We even had regional police. So let's learn from your scholarly experience. What are those things that led to the problem areas we need to avoid, as we saw at the period when we had state and regional police in operation?
Okay, now you're dragging me into what I don't want to dwell on extensively, but I won't raise it now. You will lose nothing by giving snippets of the ideas. Now, as I've said on some occasions, Nigeria is not about to create state police. Nigeria is about recreating the federal, reintroducing the federal principle into the ownership and control of police. Because, as you have said, and is properly documented in my book, you want to say before Abraham, Jesus was. Now, you had native authority police, and then in both the northern and western regions. Later, in the western region, the nomenclature was changed to local government police force, and then the forces were run on provincial basis, which is why people want to call them regional police, not quite. Now, the relationship between that type of force then, from quite early in colonial times until 1970, when those forces were abolished, largely beneficial and cooperative, because the MPF had training schools that personnel of the Native Authority and local government police forces were sent to for training. But on the issue of relationship, working relationship, there was a problem later, and that problem was in the western region. I will try and summarize what happened. While it was just Native Authority police, no problem. But an experiment was done in the old Oyo province in 1947, when the Native Authority police forces in Oyo province were provincialized. And the man who drove the experiment was a Nigerian police force officer, a colonial officer, G.A.V. Dobosea, who started his career in the north. When he dreamt or tried to toy with that idea, he was literally chased away from the northern region. He then came to Ibadan, and there he experimented with provincializing the Native Authority police forces, and in the process, putting the officer of the Nigeria Police Force in charge of the Oyo province as officer in charge of the local government police force. Now, That was that was what the Awolowo government met when it came on board in the early 50s. And by 1955, it had been perfected. So all of the Native Authority police forces in the Western region were now provincialized. And Nigerian police force officers were made to be officers in charge of those provincial forces in the various provinces.
Okay. All right.
It was going on
Prof,
smoothly.
I didn't
Yes.
intend to do this, but then we just have to pay this bill. We have a scheduled commercial that we need to take. And maybe we'll do that quickly. When we come back to you, I actually like us to zero in on what those pitfalls are that we need to avoid as we.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's take that commercial break now.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Wherever life takes you, home is who you share iftar with. Ramadan Mubarak from Terra.
All right, thank you so much, Prof, for staying with us. We can continue now. I already narrowed down the question to a specific area, the pitfalls that we need to avoid.
Yeah, the pitfalls. One is that there should be no subordinate relationship.
Between who and who?
Between the Nigeria Police Force personnel
Okay.
operating in the states
Okay.
and the new state police forces personnel.
Okay. How do we ensure that, since we are still going to amend the Constitution?
Very simple. Once the Constitution is amended,
Yes.
and Osun now has his Osun State Police Force, and then and I've told you how best they can go about getting personnel. Just take all of the Amotekun there now, put them in, and then you can be improving on personnel. But the Nigeria Police Force, of course, there will be legislation, and to be fair to the various governments in the Southwest, for instance, all of the Amotekun operating now, they have enabling laws. So you already have what you can call the rudiments of state police law. Because all you are going to change is nomenclature. But the laws can be looked at. Is there any improvement that you can do? But the Nigeria Police Force personnel in the various states in Nigeria must be very cautious about how they relate with personnel of the state police. There should be no impression of subordinate relationship. And of course, once personnel of Nigeria Police Force are not made to be officers in charge of state police, no problem. Where they need to interact, if there are state laws that are strictly for enforcement by state police, they will. Those that border on federal crimes, of course, personnel of the state police know well enough not to overreach themselves. And there can be no conflict about that. Where there should be a conflict, you go to court to sort out such conflicts. But the state police forces, we need the Nigeria police to a very large extent in the matter of training and then conduct. Whatever is good in the police that we have now, they can borrow. But there can be no strict dividing line. This is my territory, this is your territory in the matter of how they do their work. Once that is sorted out, no problems. The differences cannot be great unless exacerbated by the leadership of the MPF in the states and the leadership of the state police in the states. But the governors also must be allowed, quote and unquote, to savor the ownership they now have of their police. Because for Lagos Security Corps, Amotekun, what is lacking now is arms. And once they do that, provide necessary equipment for their personnel, they are good to go. And there is nothing, for instance, if you are looking at interstate crime, somebody has offended in Oshun, once it crosses over to Ondo, the Oshun State Police personnel can liaise with their counterpart in Ondo for apprehension. If it involves intervention by personnel of the MPF, there's no big deal about cooperatively sorting these things out. We already have the Kweremadu Committee, for instance. I'm saying now that even at the national level, we have documents available that can guide the process of setting up state police. Kweremadu, when this thing was not yet popular, was a one-man advocate for this thing and did a lot of legislative work on it. So whatever may be available, for instance, the Ogunshaki Committee can look at that in doing their work and any other available document. I have looked at the Indian Police Act, for instance. It is one national police act, but policing is organized also at state level. All that the states have done, just take the Indian Police Act, borrow from sections of the act to adapt for your purpose. That can also happen in Nigeria. In other words, the NPF Act, the current one is 2020, can also be useful. So there is a lot of synergy that can happen, but we all know that protection of territories is one challenge uniformed personnel have, even now, between the Army, the Air Force, the Navy. Even as they combat bandits, there's still this thing.
Yeah,
territorial
flexing of muscles.
Yes, it's only in recent times that they have realized the need to be cooperative.
So I'm wondering also whether, considering the fact that all the states are not of the same, they don't have the same force, the same financial muscle, they don't have the same political push at the same time. And I'm wondering whether it's possible for the National Assembly to have a kind of one-size-fits-all kind of model law to sell to the states as regards the legal structures for the establishment of the police in their respective states.
I deliberately cited the Indian Police Act and the way states have adapted the main one for their purposes. You see, there can be no one-size-fits-all when you are dealing with a federation. States must be allowed some modicum of independence to order their lives the way they wish. I'll give you an example. I saw the title of an article. It's only people with first class that should be recruited into state police. The person sent it in to me. I just replied him, this writer, how many first class people are in his family? That to do police work, it must be first class. Policing is about intelligence gathering. And gathering intelligence does not mean you have to be literate in the English language. No. In communicating what you have got, because of the times we are in, may be useful, but you can gather more intelligence knowing your terrain. Let them go and ask about Amusa Abidogu in Ibadan and his exploits. I was a local government police officer. It was wonderful until the crisis of the Red in those days. So as for legislation, that's what I'm saying, that we already have at the National Assembly level the Kweremadu, whether it's bill or an act, which can be looked at for adoption. I think this deputy speaker now tried something the other day. If it is necessary, you can look at it. Just marry the thing. And as I've said, you can also, side by side, look at the 2020 Police Act, which is the updated version of the act governing policing in Nigeria at the MPF level. So it's you will have to, when you remit this thing to the states, leave them some room to maneuver. Is it not about containing crime primarily?
Yeah.
That's the main reason you have police forces. And if that's the main reason, the laws that you are going to write should be focused primarily on containment of misdemeanor. I mean, whether it's felony or whatever the grade. And therefore, the differences cannot be great. But individual states may still have their approach to how they want to go about it. For instance, on the issue of uniform, there may be those who decide that if women are to be in their police force and they are, depending on their religious orientation, their dressing must be of a kind. Must you pettifog over that kind of thing? The answer is no. Once the individual does the job for which she has been recruited, we are good to go. So governors who are to be the political authority in charge of the police in their states, because people like to attend just talk as if they don't know what they're talking about. No police organization comes into being without some political authority. Some room must be left for those who own the police to manage their police.
Would you suggest, for instance, that at the time that state police comes into being, that the present police force should shed some of its weight to the states, as takeoff, I don't want to say takeoff personnel for the states. Let identify personnel in the Nigerian police force now and, ask some of them to go back to their states as part of the takeoff personnel for state police in their respective states.
If all of the states take off at the same time with the state policing,
yes,
whatever personnel they recruit, if you add that personnel, that number, to what we have now for the MPF, it will still not be enough for our purpose in Nigeria. So there's no point about shedding weight. There's no point driving, quote unquote, driving people away from the Nigeria police force just because we want to go and beef up the personnel at the state police level. But something can happen, and I can tell that for free. A state sets up its state police. The remuneration is huge. Accommodation, training facilities, and other things. There could be people serving in the MPF who may decide, I think I want to go home and serve my people. That can happen. But it should not be something that you drive from force headquarters. We are too heavy. Go away. There is more than enough work for police. If we have about only 400,000 police personnel, the Nigerian population, we all know what it is. Various figures, from 200 million to 230 million. And with so very many ungoverned spaces, no, we cannot have more than enough police. We can have less than enough. Okay. Yes, that is if all of the states key in.
Yeah, and how do we avoid some of the misuse of the police as we have them presently? For instance, we are told that nobody can even tell you for sure how many policemen we have in Nigeria. It's always about or between this and that. But even when we think that we don't have enough police to maintain security, we still know that almost 1/3 of the policemen that we have are deployed to wrong uses, running errands for political office holders and all of that. How do we address that when state police comes on board, and to ensure that this is not carried over to the states where they will then become, servants to political office holders, local government chairmen, councillors, and all of that? Don't begin to inherit what the national officers are going to be to be shedding.
Okay, you can legislate for many things, but there are two things nobody can legislate for:
bad conduct,
integrity, and decency. You cannot legislate for those things. And let us get it clear. In the immediate aftermath of setting up state police, you should expect that the political governing elite are likely to feel, quote unquote, bigger than they are now.
Feel entitled.
We have our own police. Yes, we have our own police now. Now, and that's why the federal government cannot overreach itself about what and what state police should not do. No, 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 no. Enabling law guiding the operation set, the nitty-gritty, the daily conduct cannot be the business of anybody. But where those who have been employed overreach themselves or are misused, those who can respond to their misuse or their excesses will do so appropriately. You have a state police, force. It will have its own head by whatever label. I'm going to what the Western region did when he called the head of his own police Superintendent General. This is not the time for, we don't have the time for me to tell you the story. But whatever label they give the head of their police, the man is responsible to the governor
chief executive
of the
officer
state.
of the state.
Yes, because that's one complaint everybody has. The governors are not the chief security officer. Okay, governors are now chief security officer with teeth, with teeth and meat. Now you have your police that you have provided arms for and you have equipped, but primarily to contain crime.
Okay.
If you now veer into other things, you will face the consequences.
All right.
And let nobody
Prof,
think that it's not possible.
Prof, quickly, in just 1 minute, how do we then, I mean, none of the governors actually now should be complaining about lack of funds. The governors have been having so much money come their way since President Tinubu became president. So none of them should be complaining of no funds to set up police now.
Haven't you also had them talk about the cost of things have gone up? In other words, President Tinubu may have freed funds for them, and on the basis of FAC allocation, they have been collecting like 3 times what they used to collect. But smart ones among them have also told Nigerians, the prices of things have gone up. But President Tinubu, because he has now 31 governors on the same page with him, they will sort these things out. And let us not overreach ourselves by wanting to dictate to them how they should sort themselves out.
If there's any if there's any time Nigerians will be hopeful about state police, this probably is that time.
No, it is the best time because the man who is driving it has experimented in Lagos, and that experiment has ballooned. I was at the seminar that was organized to talk about, give intellectual support for Neighborhood Watch, 2002 in Ade Mbero Hall. But you can see how progressively Lagos went about it, that you now have the Lagos Neighborhood Security Corps. All they are now going to do is change court to police and state police. That's all. Lagos is already ready. And I know that they must have training school. So they have more money. President Tinubu, who they all relate very well with, which is not common. This has not been the pattern. I believe between him and them, they know how to go forward. Let us keep hope alive.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doctor. We really appreciate your time. Professor Kemi Rotimi, thank you really much again. We appreciate it.
Well, but we now know what is meant by the challenge with real-time transmission.
Thank you so much, sir. All right. There we have him there, Dr. Kemi Rotimi, Professor of History at the Obafemi Awolowo University. He's been our guest today as we quickly looked at the issue of state police, an idea whose time is now. Thank you for investing your time with us, too. We'll see you around. My name is Benga Aruleba.